So, you guys, it sounds like the Democrats are turning on each other, the Democratic leadership, I should say. And Nancy Pelosi apparently just threw Joe Biden under the bus and seems to blame him for the defeat. It says here in the Guardian, take everything with a grain of salt, but it's the UK Guardian. It says here that um, Nancy Pelosi told an interviewer that Joe Biden's slowness in exiting the race, the 2024 presidential election, cost the Democrats because it didn't give them enough time to have a primary. So Nancy was having an interview with the New York Times. The podcast is called The Interview. It's a New York Times podcast. And in this conversation, which apparently will be published today in full, it says that Nancy told the host that had President Biden gotten out of the race sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. And she said that the anticipation was that if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. If he had stepped aside, I guess before the debate even happened. And Nancy further said, and as I say, Kamala I think she would have done well in that and been stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. We live with what happened. And because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, this is all Nancy, that really made it impossible to have a primary at that time. If it had been much earlier, it would have been different, end quote. So basically, she's putting the blame on Biden. She's saying that Biden stayed in the race too long. By the time he got out after the debate, it was too late to have a primary. And so they went with Kamala because, in addition to it being too late, Biden immediately endorsed Kamala and foreclosed any possibility of them proposing other candidates. And to some extent, I mean, I guess you can understand what she's saying. Biden got out of the race when he got out of the race. I don't know whether that was too late or too early, but I do know he immediately endorsed Kamala Harris. And I remember the Obamas did not immediately, what's the word? They did not endorse her immediately. They did not, they didn't endorse her immediately. They waited a day or two, and in fact, everyone else had endorsed Kamala. So it was sort of beginning to look bad on the Obamas, and so they then came on board and said that they endorsed Kamala. But you can just imagine the conversations that were going on behind closed doors of the Obamas and Barack, who has been in Kamala's shoes. He's run for president. He knows what it takes. He was probably in full panic mode talking to Michelle, telling her she can't win this. She can't win this. But if we don't endorse her, we look bad because, I'm the black president. This is the first black woman. I look sexist, whatever. So he went along with it. But it was Nancy Pelosi, apparently, who nudged Joe to get out when he did. So even though she's saying that if Joe had gotten out sooner, that they could have had a primary, they didn't have a primary, right? And so he didn't get out sooner. She should have left things alone. She shouldn't have forced him to come out of the race. And then he screwed them all by giving them Kamala. Because why did he do that? I don't know. I think it's many different possibilities. One is he just wanted to screw them. You want me to drop out of the race? I'm going to give you a candidate that can't win, right? And screw you all. I don't care. That's one possibility. Another possibility is he did it because he really just believed in Kamala, and he felt like if he didn't endorse her, they would put her through a primary and she would not win the primary, right? And so she wouldn't be the candidate. And he wanted her to be the candidate because he truly believed she could win. Maybe he was deluded. I don't know. I have said that I think Joe Biden set up Kamala to fail because he's a seasoned politician. He knows. He's a man. He knows, right? He knows. He's a white man. He knows. He's a white man politician in Washington for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. He knows better, right? Kamala ran against him for president. She said certain things about him during their primary when she ran for president next to him. And he chose her as vice president, I assume for strategic reasons at that time. This was the COVID era, right? He wanted to win. He wanted to appease certain communities. And so he chose her. And then they went on to get the most votes ever. 80 million people came out because people were so panicked about COVID and having a second Trump term at that time, right? So he picked this VP, but he didn't have to pick her for this, presidential role, right? He did that for his own reasons. I don't know. Like I said, there are different ways you can look at it. It was either a setup or it was a leg up, whatever it was. But the bottom line is that this was a mistake. Him endorsing her probably was a mistake because if they had anyone in the team had gone against that and said, no, not Kamala, somebody else, this would have been ugly in the press. It would have looked bad. Then you would have, people would have sort of picked sides. You'd have all the black voters saying they're not voting for this candidate because they didn't want Kamala because she's a black woman and this, that, and the next. The thing to have done really was to have left Joe Biden in this race. Just leave it alone, Nancy. You are the one that screwed up. You listened to what's this guy's name, George Clooney, and these types of people. You went and you interfered with the race, and you shouldn't have. Yes, he had a disastrous debate, but it was too late for a primary. Leave it alone. Leave it alone, right? Too late for a primary. It means that you knew that it would have to be Kamala, right? Because it was too late for a primary, you said, right? So it is you, Nancy, who screwed up, right? But why did Joe Biden do that, right? Why did he do that? He screwed everybody with that. He screwed everybody.